All right, how's everybody? Welcome to another special edition of the Three Brothers Podcast. Man, in studio today, we have author extraordinaire,
absolutely,
David Lee Morgan. We talked about you a couple of weeks ago. I know you were under the weather a little bit.
That's right.
So, first of all, how you feeling?
I'm doing a lot better. Got some antibiotics, steroids. That old age, my back was killing me.
And
I didn't want to take anything. I'm glad I did because I got better.
Did Jill,
there you go.
Jill take that picture because you were in the covers the dog?
Oh yeah, the dog.
All the pills.
I took that, I had all those pill bottles. Okay. Yeah, but I'm good. Thanks.
Good. So, David Lee Morgan is here today to basically share and promote his new book.
Yes.
It is entitled The LeBron Phenomenon, My Front Row Seat to History.
Right.
I get that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Excellent.
Front row seat.
So, listen, let me give you the wheel and let you drive a little bit.
Okay.
Because I want to hear all about this book.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start off. Well, first of all, I was at the Beacon Journal for 15 years.
Correct.
Covered everything. Covered preps, city series, all of that. Then kind of moved on gradually. Covered University of Akron. Covered the MAC. And then after that, I started getting into covering the Cleveland Indians, Guardians. Well, I really never covered the Guardians, but I covered the Indians. And I did a little. I would always help out with our Browns coverage and our NBA coverage. I did everything. Everything. But. So around the time when LeBron was there, so his freshman through sophomore year, I was covering the Akron City series. So they kind of lumped in Hoban and St. V.
Okay.
Right.
So that's how I kind of started covering them. But this is my third LeBron book. The first book I wrote was called what was it? LeBron James: The Rise of a Star. LeBron James: The Rise of a Star, and that book really came about when LeBron was on the cover of Sports Illustrated because and I talk about that in this book. Actually, that's my first chapter, how it all started, because Jay, you know all about it. I mean, when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated that day, when you went outside, there were live trucks all
Is that right?
lined up from Buffalo, Erie, Youngstown, and
you were teaching at St. V then, right?
I was there.
And back then, the internet really wasn't what it was now. And even cell phones, you had those cell phones that with the little antenna up, and if you had a flip phone,
you're a big deal.
You're like this.
You hit me on the page, I'll get back to you.
Get back to you. So you really couldn't take any pictures. So newspapers were still they were big, and TV and being live, having live shots. So that's how it all started with LeBron James, The Rise of a Star. And then a few years later, I did a book called A Ring for the King, King James, Shaq, and the Quest for an NBA Championship. And that book was all about once the Cavs got Shaq, when they brought him in as a free agent, and they had Mo Williams. It was, because that's who's on the cover, Shaq, LeBron, and Mo Williams. And that was more of a book of, okay, now do they have the right pieces?
Right.
And now this book, this is kind of interesting because somebody asked me, how long did it take? It took me 23 years to write this.
Wow.
And really, it was because, when I figured, okay, maybe I'll do a book when he's 10-year in the league.
Yeah.
And then I kind of missed that because you need some kind of hook. And then I said, okay, I'll do 15-year. And I didn't do that. And then I said, I'll do a 20-year look. And then I didn't do that one, which was in 2023.
Right.
And then I said, you know what? He's about to retire. I need to do this. I need to finish this book. So basically, this book is just a collection of stories of what it was like covering LeBron from freshman year all the way through his senior year. Because those other books were more... The first book was a biography. Gloria, they were great. Eddie, they allowed me to write that book. They gave me names of people I needed to talk to. They brought pictures, all of that. It was great. I'm indebted to them for letting me do that. The second book was, like I say, about Shaq and all those guys. But this book was from my perspective, like what it was like traveling all over the country, especially his freshman or his senior year, going all over the country. And so I just wanted to tell stories of what it was like, to cover a phenomenon, because this was a once in a lifetime thing. And so, and it was it was so much fun to reminisce, because a lot of this stuff happened from 1999 to 2003. Music was different. There was no TikTok. There was no social media. None of that was around. So it was a completely different era.
Well, I know you guys have questions. I just want to say how glad I am that you did this, because, usually when a superstar comes through any kind of sport era, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then it's all over. So you've chronicled some things, I guess, from the past, starting from St. V all the way through, which is good. So we'll have something to look back on. And the fact that he's from Akron, I mean, that's even better.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead. I know you guys have.
No, I was just going to say, it is an era. We can all remember the 15 or so years that Tiger Woods gave us.
Right.
Which was just, it was almost to the extent that no matter what else he did, you kind of had to forgive it because he gave you so much joy in the pursuit and the things that he accomplished on the golf course. So LeBron, same deal. Quite frankly, no off the court drama. So so it's even more from that standpoint. I mean, every year of these 23 years in the league, is it 23 in the league?
23.
23.
He's 41, but he's 23 years in the league.
Okay. All right. Then plus the 4 years of high school. So this is a dude that's been, in our perspective for almost 30 years now. So
almost 3 decades.
Yeah.
You know, 2.5.
So that's credible. So my I guess the silliest question is, why'd they choose that color basketball on the cover of Sports Illustrated? Because it just seemed, you know what I mean? Out of perspective. So and they do that typically for, sort of when they're introducing somebody like this. It's a little bit off from what you would think you would see. Like it ain't that Sidney Moncrief, hands behind his head posters. It's not a great post. I mean, it's not a great photo. But it's a memorable photo. So it's obviously there. I was just wondering if you had any concept on why they came up with that of everything they could have taken of him.
No, and that's a good question. But, that was all out of our hands. That was all, I don't even know if that was Phil Masturzo. Phil, Phil good. I mean, Phil Masturzo, long-time photographer, great. I mean, one of the best in the country.
He really
but I don't know if that was one of Phil's photos or if that was Sports Illustrated because Grant Wall, rest in peace, passed away. He wrote the cover story. But I will tell you this: that basketball, the color was weird, but it was the perfect spot for LeBron to sign his autograph because that's how he signed for us. It said, to the Morgans.
Gotcha.
But it was a perfect spot for people to sign, for him to sign it. But I don't know. A lot of the photos that were in there, I think Phil took a lot of those.
I would think so because he took a ton.
Yeah.
All right. What we got?
Well, the thing is, being there at the time, and I would think there was probably more drama than high school, than even as the future went on, because everything was controversial because no one knew what it was like to have a phenom at the school.
Well, it should be noted that you were his football coach.
Yeah.
I want to make sure people understand.
You know what? And that's the thing. All right, when Bob Huggins is leaning on your fence watching your football, you're going, what's going on?
Right.
And people are walking through the hallways and wanting to meet LeBron, and he's meeting Jim Tressel, guys like this, and I'm going, it was just such a, you weren't used to. And what I tried to tell teachers and all that were there is, because sometimes people would get a little jet. We had people in our building. I don't even know where they came from. They would just come in with autograph things and wanting to be. And I'm going, who is this? And we had no idea. But I tried to tell them this is a once in a lifetime thing. We'll never see this again. Not in our lifetime. And so far, I don't think we have. But to have all the publicity, the Hummer, all the stuff. And I remember asking if I could take the Hummer out. He said, "Sure, coach." And I was like, I said, LeBron. But what went on in the school, I think, and even when you talk about those cameras showed up and those, people can't imagine that anymore because you don't need any of that.
Right.
And it was, I got a phone call. I was laying on the couch at home, and they were like, "Hey, you might want to come up to the school." And like you said, these people camped out. It was always people coming in there. And it was overwhelming at the time, probably because I never saw, though, LeBron get overwhelmed. That's what amazed me. He could keep his composure at 15, 16 yards there. I would have lost it. There's no doubt. But it was amazing to see that. And I'd see the stories in there. And some of like the teams they played against and when they lost the title.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
I think that's a huge story that, again, people don't understand what a competitor, but a gracious guy. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
didn't fold. You know,
Right.
it just there's a lot
Sophomore
of stuff.
year.
No, this was his junior year, and that's funny
Yeah.
you say that because that's one of the that's one of the things I talk about in one of the chapters. Is I think it was it's called the state championship that got away because what happened was they blew out Poland, and in that press conference, LeBron said, you know, I don't want to guarantee a win, but I'm going to guarantee we're not going to lose. So basically, that's what that. And the thing was, I think they played Cincinnati Roger Bacon.
This is Roger Bacon.
And they had already played each other earlier in the year at Kent
Right.
State.
Yeah.
And St. V beat them 79-70, I think.
Okay.
So St. V and LeBron and all those guys just felt like they would be able to just run right past them.
Yep.
But, you know, Roger Bacon played a great game. They slowed things down. LeBron got in foul trouble a little bit. But there was one thing about that game that I always talk about, and I knew this, and this I think this maybe was in the first book, but LeBron, there was about maybe 29 seconds left. They were down 3, I think 66-63.
Yeah.
And LeBron brings it up court, and he brings it down, and I knew everybody in that arena was thinking that LeBron was going to take the last shot. I did too. And I remember one of the players, I don't want to say the name, you know, one of the players, he kind of went down the lane, came out on the wing. He was on the elbow, and LeBron saw him. Now, LeBron was at the top of the key. LeBron saw him kind of come out, flash, pass him the ball, and he took a shot. This kid's a great shooter. He was a little bit off balance, but he missed the shot. LeBron, St. V had to foul. They fouled, and then Roger Bacon won the game on the line.
Yeah.
But I knew the first question that was going to be asked in the press conference.
Why didn't you take the shot?
It. Why didn't you take the shot? And in my mind, I knew exactly what LeBron was going to say. That person was open. And I knew that, and that's exactly what happened. I think I had the first question, and I asked about the defense. I said, "Hey, did your defense break down?" And then that next question was, "Hey, why didn't you take the last shot?" And LeBron said, "Hey, so and so was open. I'm always looking for somebody." And one of the things that surprised me was after the game. I remember this distinctively. Little Drew was he was crying, and Shion wrapped him, had his arms wrapped around him like a father. Romeo grabbed his medal, he got his medal and then ripped it off and stomped off. And LeBron, I remember, he went down all down the Cincinnati Roger Bacon's bench and shook everybody's hand all the way down to the water girls and boys, all the way through. And I remember him. It was, and I think we might have a picture in that book. Excuse me. LeBron is standing there with his medal there. He's got his hand on his hips, and he's just watching everything. And I thought he was going to be the most emotional. He was
Right.
And then I just remember in the press conference, he said, he was so gracious. He said, Roger Bacon, I give it to them. They worked hard. Their fans were great. It was just a competitive game. He said, but I'll tell you this. He said, I'm going to take a couple weeks off. And he said, I'm going to make sure I get in the gym over the summer so that I'll never, ever have this feeling ever again.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember seeing him, Jay. I remember seeing him in the summer at St. V. One day I was up at the school. It might have been July or something. And I went into the gym. And I saw this huge person of a human being working out with a trainer. And I was like, who the hell is that? Is that LeBron?
So he
looked like he got taller.
Yes, he did.
But he was about 6'8" then, but he was swole. And I was like, they better look.
Junior and senior year.
It was going into his senior year, and he was a completely different dude. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Everybody better watch out once basketball season starts because it's going to be ugly.
Wow.
And it was that whole senior year.
And you know what the funny thing was, he was playing football his junior year. Like LeBron, what I loved about him was he was never late to a meeting. He always knew the plays wherever, and he wasn't afraid. He was always open, like any always. Open about. But and again, when it was we throw the fade. I just tell Danny our quarterback, throw the fade. Who's going to go up with that? But he would say my bad. And he dropped the ball. Never had an excuse. He'd come back and tell you my bad. And had the ball, but he wanted to throw it again. But after we were done with practice, running, doing all that stuff, lights be on up in the gym. LeBron would be up there for 2 hours shooting. They had to kick him out. He'd go up and shoot after practice. He'd be up there at night shooting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I watched in the summer like you, him putting the basketball team through workouts.
Yeah.
Man, they were complaining.
Yep.
Because he would be pushing the hell out.
Yeah.
That's just the way he was.
He broke his hand one year.
Yeah.
Was that his senior
That was
year?
the senior.
Because I know the whole thing was he should just play basketball.
Yeah.
Oh, he broke his hand playing football?
Yeah,
No.
that was his junior year. He was at some kind of showcase in Chicago and went up and got I don't say undercut, but went up, fell on his wrist and broke his left wrist. Yes.
But he came back and then he ended up playing. But I remember Gloria, coming to me and go because he jumped the fence. That was his junior year or whatever to say, because his boys were playing. She had on him and he's like, Coach, I'm back, man. I want to play. So I did it right though. I made sure that our kids voted. I want anybody's dad coming and said, you let him come back out to a T. Everybody back out. So he's back. But the first thing Gloria told me though was she came out and said, Jay, she said, just promise me you'll take care of my baby. And I want to say, your baby is 6'8". Ain't no one going to hurt this cat. I mean, he was running over people easily and blocking. But I said, no, you don't have to worry about that. But he wanted to play. He wanted to be out there with his friends. And again, he didn't take time off, man. He came out there and worked his butt off.
So his senior in high school, he did not play football?
Yes. It was his senior year. It was like he was already invited to play in the All-Star game in San Antonio. At every major college wanted to play football. And when I actually went down to a Miami Dolphin reunion, I was Don Stockton, our quarterback, said, we just want to thank Jay Brophy for letting the best receiver in football go play pro basketball. I said, what? Where did that come from? But everybody was saying it, but I had to finally ask LeBron. He was sitting in the cafeteria or somewhere, and I said, LeBron, man, you got to tell me. I said, you thinking about playing football at all? Because I got Alabama, I got everybody.
Right.
I got to find out. And he goes, well, Coach, I've never quite ruled it out. He said, no, Coach. Because I'm done. I'm done. I said, well, thank you, But he was the kind of guy that wanted to meet people. So Jim Truss was up to recruit Sheehan or whatever God. So he comes out of the room asking permission if he come up, for you to come in and shake hands with Jim Tressel and just talk with people. And he was like that with all the coaches, never turned anybody down. He liked to talk to them, look them in the eye, and wanted to get that knowledge or whatever they had to offer. He wanted to hear. You know, and he was always gracious at doing it. But, you know, again, if you want to be great, everybody says they want to be great. Everybody. Until no one's watching.
Still no.
And you know, then what are you doing to be great? Camera's on, I'm working. But you know, that kid was in that gym.
Well,
like you said, that's the things that you don't realize.
Well, I'll tell you this. Frank Jesse, I interviewed him because he used to be a athletic director at St. V, and he told me that this was part in the story in the book. He said that he remembers LeBron coming in. I can't remember what year, maybe. Well, he was there just 1 year, right? Or with LeBron, freshman year. I think it was freshman year. He said LeBron came in during the summer. Was like, hey, Coach, can I go in and work out? And he said, well, you know, the volleyball nets are there. He said, well, I'll take care of it. And he said, sure, but just don't mess up anything. Right. He said that he all he heard was like dribbling and dribbling and dribbling. He said LeBron never shot the ball. He just worked on just dribbling skills. He said he was just working on all those other things.
Right.
And he said he was just such a gracious young man, and that's how he was. That's how I saw him, because a lot of people. Here's the thing. A lot of the outside media would come in and just assume that he was this arrogant because they were from the outside looking in and see all this. But for the most part, LeBron, I mean, Eddie, he kind of handled things. But for the most part, LeBron was cordial with all of the local media. I mean, he knew everybody. He would always talk to everybody. If you wanted to interview him, he was cool. I mean, it was the outside, because I remember there was, the Washington Post was always there. New York Times, there were people that would just always come in and want to write from a different perspective that they hadn't really seen, like most of us had always seen. So that's why lots of times, Gloria and those guys were guarded, and rightfully so.
Well, just for context, you've mentioned Eddie a couple times. Eddie was like a stepfather. Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, Eddie Jackson. He was
stepdad.
Yeah, he was like his surrogate dad. He was involved with the family a lot. So he kind of was somewhat of LeBron's father figure as far as things, doing things right. Going to school, those kind of things. Now he had other people around him, but Eddie Jackson was kind of the one.
I think he was recognized probably.
Right. Right.
I know Frankie Walker was
And Frankie.
one of the early coaches, Little League football and all that. And Frankie to this day is still involved with Little League and stuff.
Yeah, and the South Rangers and all that.
I wanted to ask you about your inspiration though to write about LeBron. What did it all start from your early impressions of LeBron? Like you just said, hey, I need the catalog.
Oh
Thing, or
you know this it all started just when that article was in the cover of Sport, when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, because up till then, I mean, I was telling Jay before we started here, we really didn't cover St. V a lot that first year. Like, I did a lot of research. I went back and looked at all the art. I mean, I looked at every single article that was ever written that we ever did from freshman year into his senior year. It took me a long time to research that. And I didn't even cover the very first game that LeBron played. His official freshman, his official game as a freshman. Brian Windhurst from ESPN, you know, who worked at the he was at the Beacon Journal. He's from here. And so I remember, and it's in the book, Brian, what happened was our editor, Frank Corso, was there, and Brian had to go out and cover. He came back and he said, hey, Frank, I think I saw one of the greatest high school basketball players in Ohio. And Frank said, okay, Jerry Lucas, you're talking about all these. He said, no, he said, I don't know what to tell you, Frank, but I think this guy is going to be one of the best ever. And Brian covered the first game. They played Cuyahoga Falls. And then slowly, so we started covering, we didn't even cover St. V. Matter of fact, that whole year, St. V's games were either in the roundup on page D8 in the back.
Wow, yeah.
Or they were in little rail, like it would have all the different games, you know. That's called the rail. And the very first feature we did was a feature I did when they were 19-0 going into, I think it was the Hoban game, because they went 27-0. That was our first feature on St. V. That was the first feature on LeBron. It was the feature I wrote.
Wow.
And so, but they were under the radar because you had teams like Stowe. You had other teams that were just established because they had a lot of senior leadership. You know, I think a lot of people don't give Maverick a lot of credit LeBron's freshman year, because Maverick was a senior with all of these four freshmen, you know, who didn't have any varsity experience. I mean, they could play ball, but they didn't have any varsity experience. And Maverick, and I think it was, maybe it was, I don't know if Ali Samabali and John Taylor.
And there was Irvin.
And Michael. But I think Michael was there the year before.
That, that's right.
But
they all played football for a minute.
Yeah, but those guys really set it up for them, because I think that year, the year before LeBron and them came, St. V made it to the regional semifinal, or the regional championship 2 years in a row, and I think the Tarvers were there a little bit before. Right. So they had the Tarver twins and Miguel and Maverick. So then LeBron's freshman year, Maverick was a senior. So I think Maverick really pulled those guys. I remember this. There was one game. It was the first game that we covered. I covered it. Not the first game. It was one of the first games that we actually, after the Bryans. And LeBron was the leading scorer, but I didn't even interview him. I interviewed Maverick because it was he was a freshman. He was good, but
Maverick's the leader of the team.
Maverick get most valuable player. State title team. So you know, and Mav was. But you know what? I knew Mav was a businessman back then, because he could talk his way to teams. He would talk to some nuns coming on. It's just the way he was. It's just very easy. And that's the way he was. So I could see, you know, and he had that rapport with everybody in that team. But you know, people do forget that. Maverick was.
But I so like to get back to your question, like how did I come? I had no idea I was going to write a book about LeBron James, because nobody knew there was going to be a LeBron James, other than the people, other than maybe LeBron and people who were around him. But really, you didn't know, how, that he was going to be at this level. But then the sophomore year, you start slowly seeing this. I think the time that I saw LeBron be the most emotional, and Jay, you might have been there, is when they played Oak Hill at Battelle Hall.
They lost that game, right?
And they lost that game, and that's when I can't.
Carmelo was on that team.
No, Carmelo wasn't on that. That was the next year. It was Sagana Job. Sagana was there, and they had another Rashid. I forget his not Rasheed Wallace, but he ended up going to Kentucky. They had 2 Kentucky recruits, and LeBron. They lost. I think it was 79-78. It was a 1-point game. And LeBron came down, and it came down the last shot, and his shot went up, and it rolled in and out. And I remember going in the back, and he cried. And that was the only time I've ever seen him emotional. But I remember Keith Danbrot saying, we didn't want any kind of what do they call that? Win. What kind of win is that?
I know what you mean.
We're getting
like
old.
a sentimental win. What do you call that? Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
There's no.
It's really an attaboy.
Somebody got to know. Yeah.
But he was like, we didn't come down here for that. We wanted to win.
Right.
But that was the game that really I saw that this team was different. I mean, because. Oak Hill is a team of players all over the country.
That's all they do. Quite frankly.
And then these kids were like kids that played at the JCC with Keith their 8th grade year going into from the West Side, and so. That's when I really saw, because I wasn't really sure. When I covered that game, I'm thinking, I don't know how, Sheon, Drew's going to match up. Man, those dudes, I mean, matter of fact, I think midway through the 3rd quarter, they were up either 10 or 12 points. LeBron got cramped, and he sat out. I think toward the end of the 3rd, they sat him because he was getting cramps. And I think that's when Oak Hill made a run, and then it was back and forth the rest of the way. But so that's when I kind of see. And then, like I said, when we got to that junior year, that's when I was like, man, this dude might not even go to
college.
Yes.
No moral victories.
Moral victories!
2.5 minutes later.
Right,
exactly.
Right. The processor just kept on turning, right?
That's pretty good.
But this is the book, though, question I wanted to ask you guys.
Okay.
Remember, because I told you I had a book, though, question. And this is not disparaging the City Series at all. My kids all graduated from Firestone City Series, but this is just for conversation. Do you think LeBron's career would be different if all of those guys did not go to St. V and went to Bookdale?
That's a good question.
Would he have gone to college? Would he still have gone straight from high school into the NBA? Because I'll give you what I think. I think it's a valid question, not to take anything away from. I'm not saying anything negative about the City Series, but it's just a question that you have to ask, because you have to consider. Okay, had he played at Bookdale, okay, you're locked into two games against every one of those City Series teams. Right. How are you going to play? I mean, and then does the national media say, hey, well, they didn't play anybody?
Right.
How can we tell if they're, and maybe as non-conference games, you only maybe have 1 or 2 shots. And if you lose one of those games, you're out of the question. You're out of the picture.
I think being at St. V was absolutely a factor. St. V and Hovind just carry a different kind of cachet in the high school realm. We've had some good players come out of Bookdale. Weren't as heralded as a LeBron.
But what I would say, though, is with LeBron's work ethic and the way those guys played together, they'd beat the hell out of everybody in the city at whatever division they were in. State titles. So I think he would still shine like that, but I don't know if it had been as
recognized.
Right.
That's the issue. That's the question I think he's asking.
That's where it is. And it hypothetically,
they were supposed to go to Bookdale, right? Something happened at the end.
Well, this is what I heard, and this makes sense. So, Drew, from everything that I've researched and talking to people, Drew, Keith got the job. Keith wasn't even in coaching anymore. He was working. He was a stockbroker, and but he still wanted to. Yes, at the JCC, but he still wanted to get back into coaching. So he started doing a camp at the JCC during 8th grade. So then what happened was, I think Drew started coming to that camp, and then halfway through that year, I may be up, but during the summer, the St. V job opened, and Keith applied and got that job. And Drew was like, now Coach Drew was on, I forget, maybe it was Harvey Sim's staff. Was he on Harvey's staff at Bookdale?
Okay.
Coach Drew was at Bookdale.
Okay.
And so I guess from what I'd heard, and Drew felt like, hey, if I go to St. V, I'm going to get a shot, because him and Keith started to build a relationship.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of people in the city were trying to woo LeBron.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And really, they were all going to go wherever Drew was going to play.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
And that's and they knew Drew, and Drew knew that, and Keith was like, I'm going to play whoever's the best, and he was a hard worker, and so that's how they end up going to St. V.
Yeah. Well, the thing about history, if you change, we've seen all these movies, Back to the Future and whatever, you change one little thing in history, and the future's just potentially
the
totally
butterfly
different.
effect or something like
something
that.
like that. Yeah. But I think I agree with your point that he would have had to have done more.
Yeah.
And he probably would have done more.
Yeah.
But still, in terms of the visibility,
Right.
you might be an excellent person to ask this question, because, you started Bookdale. What if you had been at St. V? Would your career have been any different, No,
I'd have sucked it off him. So no. Football was a little different because back then the City Series was pretty powerful.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
It really was.
So we, 20,000 fans at the Rubber Bowl. So St. V and them didn't really have anything on us. We played them. St. V and all. We'd beat them or they beat them. It was back and forth. So I think it was just that different era that the recruiters found us at all the schools. Now, I was found by a coach from out of Len Fonts out of Canton originally, that was watching the Pack brothers play at Hobart. He said, "Who's that linebacker for Bookdale?"
Wow.
And he just happened to come over to Bookdale to see who it was, because I used to hold my face mask up because it was loose. And he goes, "Who let this guy hold his face mask?" And that's how we met.
I'll
And
be
he came
doggone.
over, and that's,
The rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
That's a great
But we
story,
were getting recruited bigger in that time. Especially if you were, I had the size and numbers.
Yeah.
So that helped that. But I would think now, boy, that would, again, you're right. But LeBron, that was just, it was an organized atmosphere you needed too.
Yeah.
That, I think that was big. Because I used to laugh. I'd tell people, they had to have shirts tucked in, belts, all this stuff. And people go, "Oh, LeBron gets away." I said, "LeBron don't get away with nothing."
Yeah.
You know what it is? He's smart. He knows, but he wears his shirt tucked in. No problem, because he ain't gonna cause no trouble. And everybody when they complained were the ones that had their shirt out or something else. And all LeBron used to come in after games and say, when he was getting all the shoes sent to him, he would sit at lunchtime and wear a big old cowboy hat or something.
Yeah, we have a picture of that.
Is that right?
We got a picture of
And
that.
he'd give away stuff. Like he's like, who was the leading scorer of the last game where he came on the bench? It would be Corey Jones. Somebody, you got it. And he'd throw a pair of shoes. And it was just, that was the kind of person he was. He just, he loved to have fun and clown around. He was still a big kid. Yeah, I love that about him.
Well, let me ask you this. Writing this kind of a book, and you've written 2 or 3 on LeBron, is there any kind of consent required to write?
No. The first one, I asked, Gloria and LeBron and all of them, because I said, hey, like when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and I saw that and it was so surreal. I was like, what, I got to chronicle this. So I went to Gloria. I said, Glo, I'd really love to write a book about just where you came from, like the biography. And she said, well, let me ask Bron. So about 2 weeks later, she said, okay, you could do it. What do you need? I said, okay, Glo, I need names. I need family members. So I'll never forget it. So I remember I drove over to Spring Hill, and there was like one of those legal pads, and she just had names and numbers.
Is that right?
So like Wanda Reeves on Hickory, Bo Pete, I forget his real name.
I know you're talking about.
I mean, people from the South Rangers. I mean, you name it. From his principal, Mr. Cato from Rittinger. I mean, it was just, and so I just went down. And you know what's kind of cool is in that first book, if you see any of those pictures that they show them all the time on TV, LeBron with that little type basketball, all of those pictures that you ever see during the NBA, whatever, those are all the pictures that Eddie gave me.
Wow.
That was in my book. Wow. That they use, like every time I see one of those NBA. Now those aren't my pictures. Eddie gave them to, but I remember I went over to Eddie's. He lived on the west side, off of what is that?
Diagonal?
Copley.
Oh, okay.
I forget what street it was. And I remember he gave me a shoebox, and there were just tons of pictures. Wow. And we were able to just pull some of those pictures and use a lot of those. So to answer your question again, I got their consent. The other book, no, not necessarily, because that was just more of a professional basketball book. The Cavs have Shaq and Mo Williams is this, and that was more of it's a bigger book with we had a lot of Getty images, from Getty. So it was a really like a picture driven with text. But it was really, and then this book, this was really research based and personal.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the consent you got sounds like just professional courtesy.
Yeah.
Have to get it.
No, I didn't have to get it. And there's nothing controversial in this book. It's it's just a recollection. It's just reminiscent. Looking back. Of just that time period, because it was different. I mean, it was Ja Rule. It was, it was all of that, that music that was just, it was just different. Internet wasn't around that much, so it was just a different time period. But I did want to talk about. There was a couple stories in here, like we were talking about tragedy, and you guys might remember this. I know, Phil, you were were you in Maryland? Did you say?
Yep.
But what happened was, and Jay, you might remember this, I don't know, but LeBron's senior year, on New Year's Day, there was a fire. There was a tragic fire in Akron. And there was a family, the Greers, that lost like 3 young family members in that fire. So one of the boys that survived, his name was Devontae, and he was 9.
Yep.
So they reached out to the family, and LeBron had him sit on the bench. So he was sitting right next to him, and this is in the book, and actually I'll have to show you something in there. So he sat with LeBron, and then he brought that little kid into the press room. So after the game was over, he's like, "Yeah, this is my little man. Anytime he wants to come to games," and so. After that, I guess the mom wanted to leave the area. It was such a tragic thing. They lost, one of the. I think there was a daughter. She was young, maybe 6, 7. She got out of the fire, went back in to go try to get somebody, and they found her on the 2nd floor.
Wow.
So they moved to the Columbus area, and I think he went to Whitehall. So he grew up, he graduated, and then he ended up going to Baldwin-Wallace. And so I was like, I'd like to find out where he was. So I did some research, found out they were in Columbus, found out, I interviewed him. He was like, oh my God. He said, this is unbelievable. He said, I thought I'd never talk to anybody about that situation. So he's in Columbus. He's got a family. He's in the medical field. And it was crazy because he said, his girlfriend was at University of Akron. He was at Baldwin-Wallace. They were about to graduate. And LeBron and Michelle Obama was at the University of Akron speaking. And he said, LeBron was telling a story about how he always wanted to give back to community, and he told a story about how there was this young kid who lost his family members. And his wife was like, afterwards, she said, wait a minute. Yeah, he went up there and said, that's my fiance you're talking about. So he said, so I guess, she said that LeBron, they tried to call him because he hadn't talked to LeBron or seen him since he was 9. So, but he couldn't get through because he was at football practice and they had 2-a-days and he slept through it. But he was so thankful that after 20-something years, but he said one of the things that he learned from all of that was that life was so precious. And he said, even to this day, he says he won't go to bed until he makes sure everything is turned off. And he said, because, but it was a great story. You always, as a journalist, you kind of like to have that closure, that full circle. And it was nice to to do some research and find out where they were. Because the mom was like, wow, we kind of left that in the past, And there was another great story. We were in New Jersey, and LeBron and them were playing Oak Hill, and no, it was Westchester. It was Westchester, and it was Darryl Strawberry's son. And LeBron had 2 or 3 dunks back to back, and they called a timeout. And this little kid on the floor, they had hired some young kids to come out and wipe off the floor. This little kid runs out, and he jumps up in LeBron's arms during the timeout and hugs him.
Yeah.
And we have a picture of that. I'm going to try to find that. We have a picture of that. And so when I was doing the book, I said, you know what? I want to reach out to that kid because he was 10. His name was Jovan Mariano. So I did research, and find out he was murdered. And he lived in Trenton, New Jersey, because the game was in New Jersey. And it was a bad area. And he just got caught up in some kind of, it was retaliation kind of thing. But I reached out to a family member, and they said that he was a Knicks fan. But they said other than the Knicks, they said LeBron was his favorite player. So it was kind of cool to just kind of reconnect with some of those stories. Some were tragic, but
they're all stories in your.
Yeah, these are stories in the book.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That is awesome.
What's great about that is that but that's life, and that's the unfortunate things that happen too. But they go along with the good. But that's why I love the fact that LeBron has done so much back in the community and the things he does now. And hell, he's starting to golf, so look out. Look out now.
Let people know where they can get your book.
Okay.
I meant to ask you that earlier, and I forgot, and it came back.
I mean, you could go to Amazon.com and go there, but you go to my website, davidleemorganjr.com. Because if you go to that and you go to books, this is my 17th sports book. So if you click onto that, then it'll have all of my books, all of the links, and if you click it, it'll go straight to Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm the only one here that's in one of David's books, by the way, because you did that Bill Kirk story. In one of your books. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was about 2 kids from Akron going to Yale and how they were friends, but they were really from different backgrounds, and how this friendship continued on while they were going to Yale, getting their education there, and continued even after. So, I don't know if he had Thanksgiving pics of us. I can't remember that, but there were pictures in the book. So this is a friendship that had lasted up to that point, 25, 30 years, whenever the book had come out.
And that book was called High School Heroes, Stories of Inspiration, Dedication, and Hope. They were basically, they were stories that I wrote in the Beacon Journal that won awards. Because one of the things that, this is the thing that I'm most proud of. When I covered high school athletics, I always made sure that there was something positive coming out of that story. Always, because this would be the only time that a lot of these kids would ever have anything written about them.
Exactly.
And, like if you go to, I don't know, you go to any place, Luigi's, any places, Dante's, wherever, you see some of these articles put up and they're still yellowed and tattered. And, and it says 1997, 1998. Those stories meant something to people, you know what I mean?
That's right.
So I just always made sure that no matter what, there was something positive. Like I remember one year, Revere boys basketball team,
that's a great
they started out 0-13, and that's one of the stories that's in that book. They started 0-13. So I remember the one day, it was on a Monday, and we had our staff meetings, and I was just going through, and I saw the box score, and I saw Revere 1-13, and they won. I was like, that was their first win. It's January. Which means they started playing they started gym November.
Right.
So I said, hey, I'm going to do a story on them. So I went out there and I talked about, I interviewed them about, what did you learn? The resolve. How did you not want to quit? And I bet you any money, those people who played, those young men who played on that team, it changed. I bet it changed who they are.
Oh, absolutely.
Great story. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
I do have some more questions.
Yeah, please.
I'm loving hearing about the book. Now, has LeBron read any of your? You got any feedback?
I would imagine he read the first one because the book came out in 2003. Right. It came out a week before. Oh, this is great. It came out a week before the first game, right? Against Sacramento. They were out in Sacramento, and it was a 10 o'clock game. That was the first game, and he almost had a triple-double. He had like 28-9. And
this is first ever game?
Oh,
okay. Baseline jumper,
it was. So the book came out a week before. So he was still young, so I'm sure. And I do remember because I was still doing some Cavs stuff. Or maybe I wasn't, I can't remember. But I remember this. I wore a suit to one of the Cavs games. And I remember LeBron and they were all kind of, and I walked in and it said, Look at him. He wrote a book. Now he's wearing a suit. I remember that, and they fell over. He wrote a book. Now he's wearing a suit because I never wore a suit.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sure. The other ones, I'm not sure. But they were all the books that I wrote. I'm a positive person.
Right,
I wasn't trying. If anything was in there, it was because it was reported.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
And it was, but I never tried to
make something.
Like maybe call somebody out or anything like that.
Credibility is everything.
Right. And at the same time, I can't kowtow, to. But I'm always going to try to have a positive. Spin.
That Sacramento game. I'm sorry. That Sacramento game was the first time I'd ever seen him play.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, I never. It was high school, and then it was NBA. So I never saw him play. And obviously the baseline jumpers, first points ever in his career. But he did a move in that game. That was when my moment happened. He was coming down on I guess it was a fast break on the right side, and he jumped, and he kind of jumped left and went up with his left hand and just laid this thing in. It was like, man, it was the smoothest thing this is a kid that did that. Right. It was just absolutely beautiful. So I said, that's when I became a fan. And the other thing that I was going to ask you, because he caught hell, even from his teammates, it was sort of like a Caitlin Clark effect. And I don't want to compare the two, but there was a lot of vitriol toward LeBron in the league because he had gotten so much pub before he had done anything.
Right,
And the same thing that Caitlin Clark, quite frankly, is going through. Now, again, that's the only basis for comparison there. But I was wondering how,
that's a great point. I'm going to tell you this. This is a great point because let me tell you this. So LeBron's senior year, so that NBA season, we had a writer, Chris Thomason, who covered the NBA for us, and then he went out to Denver to cover. He left and went to a newspaper in Colorado. I don't know if it was the Colorado Springs Gazette, but he left and then covered the Denver Nuggets. So then I took over the Cavs beat. And so, and I remember because, I interviewed, they said, do you think you can handle it? I was like, yeah. So I remember, it's kind of funny though, because I remember our NBA preview, I wrote how Smush Parker was going to be the next star. Yes. But I would tell you this. So I was kind of doing double duty. Like I was covering the Cavs, kind of like I was covering them. I did, the first maybe week, 2-3 weeks. And then, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So then what happened was, the Cavs were horrible that year. I mean, they had Milt Palacio, they had Jermaine Jones. I'm trying to think who else. They just weren't that good. So they told me, they said, okay, don't cover the Cavs on the road. Just do the home games, but cover St. V on the road. So I was going to, the Palestra, UCLA, the Greensboro Coliseum. And then when they were home, I would be at home, and then I would cover the Cavs.
Right.
And I remember there were lots of times when St. V wasn't playing and the Cavs were at home, and I'd be at the Cavs game. I'd be in the press room, and I could hear people say, mumbling like, LeBron must be at home. Some of the press. Now they were cool. They were just messing around because we all knew each other. But it was funny because here I am traveling, covering LeBron. And here's our NBA team, hometown team, that wasn't even, they didn't even have a national televised game that year. So it was kind of interesting that I was kind of, juggling that. And,
Were you comparing it all, though, thinking, going, God, LeBron could play with these guys?
No, not really, because honestly, I always thought that LeBron could kind of fit in and come off the bench because actually, when I was covering the Cavs and I would go to practices and, you would see, Sagana and Z and you would see Carlos Boozer and you see these dudes, and Ricky Davis. I covered that game when he threw the ball up against the backboard
to get the rebound.
We were up press row, and then he got the rebound, and then we just saw him throw it back up, and we're like, wait. What did he just do? But
he was very jealous of LeBron, I hear.
Well, see
exaggerated somewhat.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I can't really say.
He was the star.
Yeah, he was the star. Him and I want to say Carlos was on that team as well.
Yeah.
But you could kind of see that people, Now I don't know because Ricky came to a couple Save games because Ricky's brother or nephew played it or was going to go to St. V,
like that, right?
Or something.
Because and that was another thing too. You saw Shaq and Wade guys show up at the games.
Yeah, they were at games. So. Yeah, but I at that time I just knew that LeBron probably he could be a six man. Not that he couldn't start, but I just knew that how the NBA how that works. They weren't just going to let him come in.
Yeah. Nobody ever had.
Right.
That's right.
So that was interesting. But I'll share another quick story. I remember this when this is off of this book, but I remember the LeBron James book came out and. So my publisher from Cleveland, he called me and said, hey, and this is in the book. He said, hey, I got a call from a TV producer from LA who wants to talk to you about possibly doing a movie based on your book. I was like, wow. He said, can I give him your number? I was like, absolutely. So 10 minutes later, I see this 818 in Burbank.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I get the call. His name is Ray Cavalieri. It's in the book. And he said, hey, this is Ray Cavalieri of Cavalieri and Associates Talent Agency. And, there's some interest in doing a film based on your book. I think we got a production company that will greenlight it.
Yep.
He said, we'd love to see your screenplay. You have a screenplay? I was like, yeah, I got a screenplay. So he said, well, if you could send it out, that'd be great. So I was like, okay, I hung up. I'm like, man, this is going to be nice. So I opened up my laptop and I Googled how to write a screenplay.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
You never write a screenplay.
I was like, yeah. So it took me 6 months to write it. It's horrible. But it's basically, and I sent it to him, and I remember him saying, he said, well, he didn't say it in so many words. He said it's rough, but we can He said it's rough, but we can work with it. But I mean, writing a screenplay is complete. I was trying to write everything. I was writing direction. I was writing lighting. I was writing scenes.
Yes, exactly.
And in a script, and in a screenplay, you're just writing the dialogue and that's what they hire directors for. But it's kind of cool. I have it, and there's pictures of a few pages of the script in there.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. But those are the kind of stories that are in there. Like when I met Jaleel White, when I met Steve Urkel, those are the kind of stories that are in the book. But I don't know what I mean. It was just incredible. Of fun. I mean, who would have thought in a million years a dude from Warren, Warren G. Harding, who had a 1.5 in high school, could have had a 3.5. Just didn't try hard,
You sound like you had a good time.
Right. Would be writing about one of the greatest NBA basketball players of all time. And the fact that this was cool too, the fact that the NBA universe was on Maple Street.
Yeah.
It wasn't in LA or Brooklyn.
That's right.
Or North Carolina or Jersey. It was on Maple Street.
Crazy.
Everybody who was anybody wanted to be at Maple Street or at the Jar.
Yes.
Right. That is crazy.
I mean, you had NBA players going out to Talmadge for a tournament game.
That's what I'm saying. When those things started, it was nothing to see those guys walk in. Because they stand out. I was in Canton. I think it was.
They were at that.
Wade, guys would just show up and watch the game.
And that's that game right there. They were playing Central Howard. It was the regional championship game. And they were up in Cleveland and drove all the way down here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean,
that is so crazy.
Well, listen, I want to mention once again the name of the book. It is called The LeBron Phenomenon, My Front Row Seat to History. Man, sounds like an awesome book. Your stories were incredible.
Thank you.
I do have one closing question.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what other writing projects that you have lined up for down the road? What can we expect to see from you in the future?
That's a good question because people ask me that all the time, and it just falls into your lap sometimes. Like we did, a few years ago, a buddy of mine wanted to do a film on Mary Motley. And actually, it didn't even start out as a film. We just wanted to raise money to have some kind of monument to show that Mary Motley is from Canton. So we ended up raising money, and then we said, hey, why don't we do a film? You know, so they brought me in to help write and interview. So we ended up doing a 30-minute documentary that was on PBS, and we won a regional Emmy for it, for Best Historical Documentary. That's something that I didn't know I was going to do, but it just happened to fall in my lap. Same thing with this. I mean, the timing, I was like, I better get this out before he retires. You know, so it just depends. I mean, you know, because you don't want to force anything. It's not going to be organic and real, and you could see right there it's going to be so superficial, you know. So I don't know. I mean, there's nothing that I'm working on right now, but you know.
Well, keep us posted on that.
Yeah, I will. I'd love to come on because you guys do a great job.
Hey, anytime, absolutely.
Anytime we got scores. Keep going. We had all the players go up there. We're out the Browns game, and me, him, and Bernie Kosar. We went up to the booth. We had all the guys eating in Bernie's booth. Me and him hanging out.
It just. Oh, you didn't tell? Yeah, eating, and then who walks down? Lebron, Romeo, and Romeo. My son is with us, and Romeo comes down because he loved like Skittles and candy. And my son was eating some candy. He just reached over. And then the next thing you know, LeBron is down on the field in a meat coat because Bernie and them took them down and then took them onto the field. They were up with us. Next minute ago, and I go get some food or something. Next minute, no. LeBron and them are down there on the Brown sideline, and LeBron had a mink coat or something.
Oh, that is crazy.
A pullover or something. So
awesome.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This is great.
Loved it. Absolutely.
Hey, everybody out there, you guys got to see this set. This is like
everybody out there. This is the book you got to get. Absolutely phenomenal.
Great story.
Thank you again, David Lee Morgan. We appreciate the time that you spent with us. We're looking forward to your book.
Thank you.
Future projects.
Appreciate it.
And like we said, you're welcome here anytime.
Okay.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, bro. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Absolutely.
So this was a special episode of the Three Brothers Podcast with David Lee Morgan. Thank you for joining us. And do us a favor, run out and get this book.
Absolutely.
Great story.
Take care, everybody.
See you guys.
Peace, guys.